Welcome to the Beyond the Bucket Show, a podcast centered around optimizing all lives' buckets. We all have buckets we are balancing: coaching, entrepreneurial ventures, family, passion projects, and health. Let's all take this journey together and become bucket fillers. And here's your host, Chris McSwain.
Welcome back. We've got another fantastic show for us here today. A coach in many different genres, basketball, of course, but also the life version, as well as a therapist, a good friend of mine. Happy to have you on the show. Welcome, Megan Hankins, to the program.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That intro music is amazing. Side note, like I was over here like, okay, I hear you. Okay.
I mean, it's one of my favorite beats. I was like, one of my former coaches at Valley, his friend is a producer. So I reached out to him. I said, hey, I need a beat. Nobody else can have it. He sent me like a link to thousands of beats. And this was the third one. My favorite number is 3. And this was the third one that I chose. And I just started listening to it. And I was like, wow, I love this. So I bought the beat. Nobody else can have the beat unless they go through me. But yeah, shout out to Jay Phils. If he's still selling beats, he does a really good job. So yeah, that's where the beat came from.
It's clean. It's clean. I liked it.
And we talked about it right before, but your volume and like this is the best audio that I've heard from a guest in a really long time. So,
well, I can't take much credit for you. Shout out to Staples. Appreciate it.
Giving all the shout outs. But as we start, Megan, give us a fun fact about yourself that most people would not even know about you, even people close to you.
Oh, that's a hard one. Fun fact that people don't know about me. Well, I could say the fun fact that people don't know about me. I would have to say my closest people know this, but like I tried out for American Idol. This was a while ago. I was not on TV, so don't go start searching my name or anything like that. But like, I went early in the morning to the Cow Palace. Me and Dan, and I was in grad school. Yeah, I was in grad school when this happened, and it was an experience. It definitely was. Like you think you can sing, and then you get in a group of people, and they're like, "Whoa, you can really sing." Like I just mess around. Like this is your thing. Like, okay. So yeah, I think a lot of people don't know that I sing. I think a lot of people that know me but don't know me, I used to sing the national anthem before all my home games when I played. So I would say that's the thing that people don't know about me.
Okay, so why don't you give us a few bars?
Oh my God, you would not. I'm like, I can't. No, not today.
Maybe after some green tea.
Maybe after the end of the interview, if you remember, okay. I'll try.
Well, I'm not gonna forget. So,
well, if I sing, wait a second. If I sing, you got to sing, right?
Of course.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. Then I'll do it. Then if you do it. All right.
So about that just goes to show you there's so many talented people in a lot of different areas and people don't even know who they are. That's one of the things that I like doing about this. One of the things I like about doing this podcast is finding like gems, people like yourself that maybe not be world known, but they are known in their community and things like that. So it just goes to show you how talented people are and like just recognizing that because we watch The Voice a lot, me and my wife. Okay. That's like the one show that we watch before bed. We don't watch very much TV, but she likes to put that on and then it gets me caught up in the say, who's going under John Legend's team or Reba McEntire, all that. So yeah, there's just a lot of talented people and you're wondering like, why aren't they made it already? So why don't you talk a little bit about that? How come people don't make it in that industry? Is it just that hard? Is it like making it to the NBA? Is it like making it
singing? Or are you talking about
singing? Yeah.
I just think from what I've gathered, because I kind of dabbled in it, and I think you have to have a look. I think it's not just like the voice, but it's like what vessel does it come in? And I think that there are some people that are just born for it. Like, some people are just born athletic. Some people are just born and they know how to read like at age 2. Like, I just think that I think we're all given gifts. And I think we all like I think I have a lot of different things that I like to do and that I'm kind of good at, but then like there's the one thing that is like my zone of genius. Like I know that I can do X. Well, I like to sing. I know I'm pretty good at it, but it was not like I knew it wasn't going to be something that I took on somewhere. I think sometimes, I think for me, I kind of wish that I maybe have like joined like a group and like sang at like the Sunday brunches and stuff like that. You know how like when you see go to live music. I think that would have been fun. And I've actually been thinking about it because we went to the Art and Wine Festival in San Carlos and they were singing PYT and I was thinking this girl was up there singing. I'm like, well, I could do that. Like, and I'm singing it to the car, and the kids are like, "Mom, you're so loud. Like, why do you gotta do that?" I'm like, well, I mean, I just gotta make sure I think I can do it. So, yeah, I think it has to come in a certain look. I think the business of show business is I think it's probably one of the roughest businesses to be in.
Right.
And I don't think I was made for it. But so many people are like, "Oh my God," like when I sing at karaoke bars or whatever, they're like, "You're so amazing. Why didn't you do this?" And it's like, because it's something I like to putz around and do, but it's not something that is like my passion,
For
if that makes
sure.
sense. Yeah.
Well, little known fact, I used to be in an R&B group back in the day
Okay.
called 1.5. It was me and my half black friend, Rodney.
Right.
And so we were 1.5. And it
Oh
was
my God, I love that.
we had a little demo too. So I was in a group, I guess you could say. We had a producer, his name was Phyllis Cypher. And yeah, we put together 3 songs. I don't know where they're at, but yeah, we wrote them and put them on wax, and yeah, so
Okay. And so then what happened with that?
it went nowhere. I mean,
Mm,
but I mean, if you don't put anything into it, then it's obviously not gonna. It was more of like a hobby. It was something that we like to do, similar to like, okay, you can be good at multiple things, but you can't be great at all of them. So,
sure.
like you just said, I think you can be good at certain things, but when it gets down to it, I'm not that good of a singer compared to
Right.
somebody like Usher or Neo that was born to do that. I
Right.
think I was born to do what I'm doing right now, which is coach, be an educator, be a teacher, and be somebody that is a mentor to kids and somebody that they can look up to and strive to be, as far as like mentality and stuff like that. So what is your main thing? What do you think you're elite at as far as, your gifts, talents, and abilities?
Sure. I think for me, I think it's connectivity. I think it's my just my vibe. Like I think that I have a presence when I'm in front of people and trying and I think I'm a really good motivator and getting people to understand that like they are in the power position always and no one is making them do anything. Instead it's a choice off of what somebody has maybe a decision that someone else has made.
Yep.
So I feel like and I guess coach, is I think that's my biggest uh genius or zone of genius is just coaching people to be better than potentially where they started.
Sure.
Would be that and motivation.
And I think right now, coaches are extremely high demand because the world is changing. First of all, everybody has coaches, even if you are the best at what you do. Michael
Mhm.
Jordan, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, above my head, they all had coaches. Or if it's in golf, if it's in tennis, and every student has a coach. But they also are known as a teacher or educator.
Right.
So, and I think especially now, mentalities are, because I see it every single day in the classroom. The mentality is completely different. So what used to motivate kids before doesn't really motivate them anymore. The things that they're looking at, the things that they're consuming has really changed. And so the personalities and the mentality has changed. So I think that we are so very important to society right now, because we can meet them where they're at, but also try to help them get better in whatever it is that they want to do, and also provide them opportunities for them to look at potential goals that they could reach and try to achieve those goals.
Right. Right. No doubt. I think that it is a different time. I just made a presentation at a local high school and I was like thinking to myself, there's no way. Like there's just certain things that are going on now that I know as a teenager, there's no way I could have gotten away with, right? And so I think it's a new time and trying to figure out what is the motivating factor, what is going to get that person to be the best. And it's trying to figure out what they want to be the best at, right? Like I don't have any skin in the game, but I want whatever you want. I'm on your team. So I think there's a lot of kids and a lot of people out there that maybe don't have a team, that don't have people that push them to be better. And I think like there's a lot of yes people in the world, right? Like just shaking their head like, yeah, you're doing great. You're doing great. Where really you're not. And needing somebody to, and I think that's why coaches are great. I think that's why teachers are great to kind of say, hey, you're good, but you got to do more. You're not working hard enough. You say you want said goal, but your work does not match said goal. Help me understand why,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's what my goal is, or that's what my role is as a therapist or as an executive coach, is really just making people match what they want to what they do about what they want, right? And holding them accountable and motivating them when they're down, or maybe making connections as to maybe why they haven't done what they've done. It's not an excuse, but I think everyone has a reason why things hold them back. And some have to go deeper than others. Sometimes it's right there in front of you. Some things you got to cut out, some things you need to add. And I think it's having, again, someone that has no skin in the game. Doesn't matter what decision you make. It's really just rooting you on. And if you happen to go down the wrong path, I think it's having a non-judgmental individual in it, right? Sometimes parents, it's hard for parents to step back and see like their kid as like they're a kid. I know it's hard for me as a mom. Sometimes I'm like, oh, like, I just want you to, I'm like, but then I got to step back and be like, well, he's going to make mistakes and I can't save him all the time. So, I think about that and just being like, I'm the person that takes a step back and being like, okay, so you made that decision. Do you think it's a good decision? They know, like they don't need me to tell them it wasn't a good decision. And then if you continue to do said bad decision, then understand these are the consequences. Are
Mm-hmm.
you okay with that? If you are, then
Yeah.
okay. Now there's some safety things involved there too, right? Like I'm not
Of
just
course.
saying, but like, you know, there's just certain situations where you're just like, all right, well, if that's what you want to do,
Yeah.
then I can't
I,
stop you.
I do have a funny story that I want to tell you after this, but the thing that you mentioned there is team. And I feel like over the last few years, a lot of the adolescents have lost track of understanding how important teams are. A lot of people have either stopped playing team sports because of what has happened over the last 3, 4 years with COVID. And then it was hard to reacclimate to being associated with the team when something got taken away. And I know like there was a kid that was a really elite soccer player that was in my class, and he's a senior now, but he stopped playing soccer during COVID. It was his freshman year, but he was elite at it. And then he stopped and he started doing other things. And I don't know what he was doing, but it was just interesting to see why he stopped playing. I lost the love for it. Well, did you really lose the love for it, or did other things fill your time? I think that's why it's important for people to fill their time with things that are going to benefit them. But just think about this: there's never been a point where you've really done anything by yourself.
That's
Like
right.
when you went into labor, it was because you and your husband had the child, and then the
Hmm.
doctor is helping you out. Or if you're a coach, your assistant coaches, you know how important they are to the entire dynamic of your program. It is so vital to have so many different people. You could have a friend that helps you in a way, get you through a moment. It's
Hmm.
rarely ever by yourself. And
Right.
I think a lot of times we lose track of how important that village is, that team, that community. And if you're going to go somewhere quick, you can probably go there by yourself. But if you're going to go somewhere far, you need to go with people, and you're going to get a lot further if you do it with somebody else,
Right.
or a group or a pack. So I think that was a good thing that you mentioned. But the funny story is about being safe. We were in the mall. My daughter was acting a fool, and she's like, "No, I don't want to go over there." So my wife and son, they walk out of the mall, and I was back with Maxine. And so to teach her a lesson, I hid and and I was in plain sight, but she couldn't really see me because I hid behind the thing. And she starts looking and noticed that I'm not here, and she starts like freaking out. And then I stayed. I waited, and she starts, getting upset and
Mhm.
crying and stuff like that. And it seemed like a longer time than it was, but
Right.
it might have been a minute. And then I come out there, and Daddy, where were you? And I was like, well, that's why you listen, because
Mhm.
sometimes you got to learn the hard way,
Mhm.
and you're gonna learn one way or the other.
That's right.
Most people don't. Well, kids don't understand that. Adults know that everything you do is going to have a consequence,
Mhm.
whether it be positive or negative. Okay, you
Right.
work out every single day. The consequence is you're going to get stronger. You're going to get fit.
Mhm.
You play basketball. You don't want to practice every day. Well, guess what? There's other players going to take your spot. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Right. 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 No, I hear you. I think sometimes, my dad, he was my first coach. He coached me in middle school, and sometimes, he was a master at using metaphors all the time, and he would always just say, "I could show you better than I can teach you." And he would always constantly talk to me and just was always in my ear, probably from middle school on, about life. And that
Mm,
was always talking about Megan. It doesn't to your point. I think I learned that early on. I don't think I really understood it until I went off to college, but that point that you made of every decision you make has a consequence, whether it's good or bad. And when you turn 18, it's on you. It's not on me or your mom anymore, right? And like you have to answer for those actions. And like I said, I don't think it really clicked until college. And then it was like, oh, this is what he meant. Got it. And would be able to return back to dad and be like, okay, dad, I heard you. Like,
mm,
that was wild. Like, I didn't really understand you, but now I feel you. It's like, I hear Jimmy now, right? Like, I understand what's going on. So it's really important, I think, too, that the village that you listen to are people that are going to make you better. And sometimes we have to evaluate our villages yearly. There's a woman that I follow, and she's got an amazing book. Her name is Rachel Rogers, and she wrote a book called "We Should All Be Millionaires," and she talks about evaluating your crew every year and thinking about, okay, who's in my crew? Are they adding value? Are they taking away value? And if they are, then I need to cut them loose. Because again, and if I'm adding value, right, to them, like, it's not just a one-way street. And so I
mm,
think the sooner we can teach young people that sometimes, like, I know this person is the person you grew up with like your whole life, but they're not good for you. And I know
right,
you can't see that right now, but I'm looking at it because I'm looking from a distance and I'm seeing this. And I'm not your mom and I'm not your dad and I'm not going to tell you what to do, but this is what I see. And I would be doing you a disservice if I didn't tell you what I saw. And I used to do
100%.
that all the time as a coach. I'm sure you do it all the time as a coach. It's like, this is what I see. Now you go do what you want to do with it, but understand that, like, this person potentially is holding you back because you listen to them and they're not helping you. They're hurting you. And once
Hmm.
they do make that separation, I'm thinking of, a couple of players I've had to have this conversation with, they've blossomed. And they literally, it's like removing that thing that gets them out, like, in their way. They remove it and all this like abundance comes to them, right? And they're just like, I don't know how that happened. I'm like, well, because you cut the fat. I mean, no
Right,
pun intended, but you know what I mean? It's just like sometimes you have to do that. And it's hard because some of these people are in your life for years
right.
and you can't see it until maybe something happens. You're like, wait a second. And then
Hmm.
you think about that one conversation you had with that one person that told you about this friend, and you're like, man, they weren't wrong.
Yeah.
And now I got to do something about it.
And sometimes people could be good to you, but they're not good for you.
Mm,
And like she just said, I always say this, and I stole this from somebody else, but now I just adopted it. But people come into your life for four different reasons, and that is
mm,
to add, subtract, multiply, or divide. And
mm,
if you got people subtracting or dividing your life, you cannot have them in your life. And there may have been a point in which they were adding and multiplying your life, but they are no longer. So that doesn't mean that you can't be cordial with them, but it may mean that you need to move on to the next season. Just like when we have players graduate, every team is going to be different every single year. You may need to move on from that season so you can get to the next season for whoever's supposed to be in your life and fill in that space, that roster spot, so to speak,
mm.
in your personal on your personal team. But yeah, so I mean, now that we've I guess that was the intro, but I want to get back to you real quick. We just
No,
started
that
getting
was a
real.
good one. I like
Yeah.
that gem. Listen, I think the other thing that everybody needs to understand is that no matter who you're talking to, you should be always taking notes, because I think people drop gems, and I don't care. I got a gem yesterday. Was it yesterday? Where are we at? Friday? No, this is Wednesday. I got a gem from a client of mine who's a young person, young child, and I just was like, "Say that again." And I
Hmm.
had to write it down, because I think about everybody when they put things together and then how it spits back at you. It's just like, man, like I need to write that down to make sure, because somebody might need that what I just heard from me hit me. Like I got to share that. I can't keep it. I got to
Yep.
share it. So like I'm gonna steal
Yeah,
that from
you
you.
should.
Add, subtract, multiply, and divide. Like
Well, I'm about to show you this, and I'm gonna be able to see it. But I do the same thing. And a lot of the times when I do my podcast, I
mhm.
just quotes and things to remember here.
Oh, I love that.
So
I love that.
I just,
Yeah.
it's like a long list
Right. You got to
of,
be like, shoot to the bottom.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
dope. Oh,
See,
I love that.
so I do the same exact thing. I don't write it down, but well, I do write it down, but just
Yeah, you write it down
on
on
the
the
phone.
phone.
And
Yeah,
some people need the physical paper too, but
yeah,
I've always been able to think of things and usually keep them in my head. So that's literally one that I wrote down years ago. People come
right.
in your life for 4 reasons: add, subtract, multiply, divide. And
Mhm,
I believe Jalen Rose said that to first. And then I just basically took it. I gave him credit the first time.
right.
Um, but yeah, I agree. I think that's significant when you can
Mm,
put stuff in like the like the most recent one. Let me just so you know,
mhm.
just so you can see it. Uh, but where is it? Okay, it's like the last one. Let's see what the last. Oh, we live in an environment of ease and excess. Like it's a
Mm,
very simple thing, but everything is easier right now, and
mhm,
we do have excess. We have an abundant amount of food. We have an abundance of resources. Every
mhm.
like right now, we couldn't have done this 10 years ago.
That's right.
We
You're right.
literally could not have done this. We couldn't have had this conversation
Mhm,
where you're at and where I'm at, or, just
mhm.
like everything's a lot easier now. But that opens up a lot of opportunity and a lot of education if you use it the right way. And what we were talking about, how, kids, they're a little bit different. That's fine because every version. I remember our coaches, we're the same age, telling
Mhm.
us, "Oh, back in our day," and that was the case. You could
Right.
do a lot of different things when we were, even when we first started coaching. You can
Mhm,
do and say a lot more than what you can do now.
mhm.
It's 20 years later, but things evolve and change, and it doesn't mean it's bad. It's only bad if you look at it that way. Oh, this new
Mm.
generation. Well, there's always a new generation. The 70s, this people in the 60s were like, oh, they don't get it. Same thing. People in the
Mhm.
80s said the 70s didn't get it, and so forth and so on. And it just keeps on going. But
That's right.
we as coaches understand that everybody's going to be different when we meet them where they're at, just like God met everybody where they're at, regardless of where they're at in their faith. I want everybody. My door is open for anybody and everybody if you're willing to hear what I got to say. And
Mhm.
that's what we as coaches do.
That's right.
Uh,
Man, you got it.
but I want to pivot because
Yeah.
I want everybody else to give us a 3-minute backstory on you, so
Okay.
we kind of get some context to where we're going to go with the rest of the conversation.
Sure, sure. So, I didn't get here without basketball. So, and what I love about sports is that it can take you anywhere and put you anywhere. I tore my second ACL. I tore my first ACL in
See,
high
that's a
school.
bar right there. It can say that again.
I don't know. You got to rewind the tape because I
No, no,
don't remember.
it can take you anywhere.
Uh-huh.
What'd you say though?
I
I wonder.
forget too. It could take you anywhere, and ooh, so
That
listen.
was
You
a
have
good
to.
one,
That
but
was a good one. So when
luckily,
I'll
luckily
rewatch
it's
it.
recorded.
Right? Thank God. um. Yeah.
It can put you anywhere and take you anywhere.
Yeah. I
Is that
think
what
that's
you
what it is. Yep.
said?
Yep. That's what gonna put you anywhere, and take you anywhere. Because I think it's true. I think, if I didn't tear my ACL my freshman year of college, I would have never gone to grad school. If I would have never gone to grad school, then I would have never, done fill in the blank. So I tore my ACL in my freshman year of college. I had a year left to play in grad school, so I
And
played.
where'd you go and all
I went
that?
to Notre Dame de Namur University in Belmont, California. I had the opportunity to go back there for graduate school. It's unfortunate that there's no more athletics, but it was very cool to take my children there and say, "This is where mommy and daddy met. This is where mommy and daddy played basketball. This is where we actually had our reception to our wedding." So it was kind of dope to do that. But I digress. I went there, I played for 4 years, and then I decided to get my master's in clinical psychology, marriage and family therapy. After that, I had to do 3,000 hours of internship, and then I got licensed. Now, I lived a double life because I wanted to be a basketball coach. So I was at CSM, I was at USF, I was at Cal State Monterey Bay, Hillsdale High School as a head coach, De Anza College as a head coach. And then I got plucked up and went up to Humboldt State, now Cal Poly Humboldt, for 5 years. So I kind of lived this double life. As a therapist, I worked in domestic violence and homeless shelters. I worked with emotionally disturbed high school and middle school kids in the South Bay, in the East Bay, and in the North Bay, or in the city. Um, so I kind of lived like this kind of double life for a long time. And then when I got to Humboldt, I just did basketball, but kept my license because it took me a minute to get that license. That test is hard. It's like a 70% fail rate. And I did fail it twice. And I thought, man, God, maybe this is not for me. And somebody was like, listen, this is just a test. It doesn't matter. Like you are meant to do this. Don't let it, And so I buckled down and I got a new teaching method. I invested in a new teaching method on how to pass it, and I passed it. And then I passed the second one. So um, just because you get knocked down a couple of times doesn't mean you can't get back up, and doesn't mean that you're not supposed to be doing what you're supposed to be doing. So I was up at Humboldt, and my head coach had said something to me at the time. Shout out to Michelle Meto Jackson. She's head coach at Cal Poly Humboldt. She said to me, Megan, there's all this support for athletes, but what about us coaches? We go through things too. So she planted the seed in my mind, and like I wasn't ready. I just was like, oh, she got a good point. I'm gonna file that back. And then COVID happened, and during COVID, I got diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder, which I can't even pronounce it. It's ITP, and basically my body fights itself and it kills healthy platelets, which means I can't clot blood, and so I have to be close to good medical assistance. And my doctor at Humboldt told me, like, during that time when they were trying to figure it out, they were telling me that I needed to be around better healthcare due to not having the best there. So I came here back to the Bay and decided to get back into my license as a therapist. And then I work also as an executive coach with coaches as well. So that, like I said, without basketball, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. I wouldn't be
Sure.
here.
Now, many directions that you can go, but in this autoimmune disorder that you got, is
Mhm.
it so? Is it like if you get cut and you bleed? Is that where, like, explain what happens? Like you said, it doesn't clot, but like, would you bleed out if you got cut, or is that why you need to be close? How to explain that to me?
Right. So, yes, like if I get like a major cut, like and I need to invest in one of those bracelets to tell people like, hey, like I have a blood disorder, like I need to like I don't it won't clot. So it would take a little bit if it was like a super deep cut. So like when I was first diagnosed, I had what I thought was a rash, and it was like red dots like all over my legs, and I was like, maybe it's just like a bunch of bugs that just bit me. And so then when I went to the doctor, they were like, those aren't bug bites. Let's take your blood and let's see what this is. Well, a couple minutes later, he comes back with like just this scary face and just saying, Megan, this could either be cancer, leukemia, and if you don't go to the hospital right now, you could die. Now we're in the middle of COVID. This is July of 2020, and I had come down to LA to visit my parents, and I had headaches, I had jaw pain, and I was like, what? And I was just there with my kids. It was just me and my kids. My husband was back working, and I was like, well, what do you mean? And so he was like, we're going to put you in an ambulance. Now, the athlete in me was like, no, you're not. I drove here. He looked at me like, what do you mean you drove? I said, well, If it's not broken, I'm fine. I was
Mm.
like, I'm gonna go home. And like and I said, listen, my parents live around the corner. He was like, all right. So I went home and I'm freaking out. I called my husband. I'm like, I need you to come down. They're telling me I have to go to the hospital, blah, blah, blah. I get home. I'm bawling my eyes out, telling my mom. And my mom's like, you're going in an ambulance. And of course, you're not fighting your mom. So I got in an ambulance 5 days later. Um, they discover what it is, but then it was like a trial and error of like, what's the medication that's going to work, what's not working. So your platelets, you have three types of blood in your body, right? You have white blood cells, red blood cells, and platelets. And when you give blood, which I didn't know this, when you give blood, they're always looking at your platelets. I didn't realize this. So your platelets should be anywhere between 150,000 to 400,000 at any given time. And when I was first diagnosed, it was at 7,000.
Mm.
So they were very, very concerned. I had like a blood blister on my lip. Like I was not looking cute. I was not at my finest. But it was scary because here I am with two children under 3, and I'm thinking I'm dying. And so in that same day, they tell me potentially I could die. I'm also told that I need to have a blood transfusion. And oh, by the way, you need to sign your life away because you potentially could get AIDS from this blood transfusion. I mean, you talk about trauma. You talk about just getting hit with like a Mack truck, and you're just like, whew, what do I do? And so I had to like kind of go through my own stuff because I was angry. I was really angry because then, fast forward, people are like, the doctors were like, well, what do you do for work? And I said, I'm a college basketball coach. And they were like, well, you might need to think about doing something else because the stress doesn't help your platelets. And I was like, and this isn't like having diabetes where you can have insulin and you're fine. Like I could be taking medication and let's say we're about to go down to Sonoma and I'm like, well, hey coach, I can't because I got to go to the hospital because my platelets are below 30,000. So that leaves her in a lurch of who's going to drive the other van or whatever, what have you. I just think it's so unpredictable. And so that makes it tough. Make it
Wow,
tough.
that is a lot.
Yeah.
So how did you deal with that new reality that you were going to have to live with? Once you got past the initial shock of it all.
The first thing I did was I got a coach, an executive coach or a life coach. And this woman is amazing. Shout out to Dr. Carla. She is amazing. And really helped me through the darkest time of my life, I would say. Because I think about grief. I think people think of grief as people dying, and that's the only time that you're sad. But this was going to be a whole entire life shift of what I thought I was going to be doing for the rest of my life, or at least close to it. And having to say goodbye to people, having to, think about what I would do next. And it was really, really, really hard. So without having support from a coach and my parents and my husband, my dear friends that came to visit me because I couldn't go back home. I was in LA for 6 months because I couldn't go back. I couldn't go back home. It was hard. It was hard, but I don't think I could have made it without my parents for sure. I stayed with my parents the entire time. So without them, without my husband, my close friends, like it, and Dr. Carla, if I'm being very honest, there's just no way um, that I could be helping others, right? Because I think some people think, I don't need help, and I'm like, we all need help, even
Right.
people that help others. I still work with her, just to kind of like help me through things because I'm human, I'm not perfect, and I think that it's okay, it's cool, quote unquote. It's cool, to have somebody that has no skin in the game to help you, give you some advice of things that you can think about to be better for yourself, but most importantly for the people that you love. So,
Right. Well, it goes back to the team that you had in place around you,
mhm,
whether it be family or a new team member that will probably always be with you from as long as you're here,
mhm,
because of what she helped you go through.
mhm.
And yeah, so what was like the darkest time throughout that process? Uh, and other than the team, what was the thing that got you out of it?
got me out of the darkest time of my life.
Yeah. So what was the darkest time? Like, what
Oh,
were
what
you
was it?
feeling? What were you
Yeah.
feeling during that time? And then what was it like? And how did you get out of that dark place?
Sure. I would say the darkest time, I think I'm gonna try not to cry. I think it was like having to tell my head coach, like, this is what the doctors are saying. And she putting it together that, like, so you might have to step away. And I was like, yes. And it was just having to, like, woo, Chris, I did not know I was gonna cry today, but it was like having to,
Right.
like, say out loud that I would have to step away from something. Um, was probably the hardest moment in it all. Um, because I loved coaching. I loved basketball in that way. And to have to admit that it was the best thing for myself, but also for my children and for my husband, that was really, really difficult. Um, so that was the darkest time in my life. And I think the brightest time was, and when I tell you, like, the amount of crying that I did, it, like, I could literally be outside and just start bawling my eyes out. And
Mm,
I bawled, and, like, there were, I mean, I would be in the shower, I would just be crying. It was just literally like having a funeral for this life that I had created
yeah.
and having to say goodbye to it time and time and time. So then when the moving truck came, I thought for sure, Chris, I was going to be bawling my eyes out, but I didn't, because I felt like I had grieved it. So I was like, I can go. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So it was like the moving truck was like the thing that you, like, you're like, okay, like, I'm okay. I'm at peace. I'm okay with it. And so when we moved and we're driving through the redwoods and we get to the city and it's like it's just shining bright. I'm just like, okay, like, we're gonna be okay. Like, no matter what's gonna happen, like, it's going to be okay. And, I've got my husband, I've got my children, and we're moving closer to family. So if anything were to happen to me, like, we have a lot more support than when we were where we were at Humble. And so, um, I was at peace with the decision that I made, because I think I made it for not just myself, but for my family. And I think, you know, um, it was difficult. It's probably one of the most difficult decisions I've had to make, but I don't regret it, because this is probably, I mean, just for health reasons, is probably the best decision for that reason. But then I'm able to help people in a different way and helping athletes and coaches in a different way. So that's a really good question, but hard one to answer.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's deep.
Yeah.
This deep life hits you very quickly. I'm not sure if you know or not, but my mom passed away.
Yeah. I'm
Um,
sorry to hear that.
and for me, it was really my mom and I for the 40 years of my life. She was there throughout the whole process. And for me to find out how she passed, I was in Vegas at a basketball tournament, and my wife was on the way to me or getting ready to come, and my mom was supposed to watch the kids. And so I start going down the rabbit hole of trying to find her. I haven't told this story on the podcast, but
Mm.
I feel this is a good place because you've been vulnerable with me, and so literally, calling anybody, hey, what's going on? Have you heard from my mom? Her phone is off, and my wife, I said, get on the plane. It's all good. We'll figure it out. And so while Maddie's in the air, I, was in contact with her complex, and they had went in, and she's like, oh, she's in there, but I don't know if she's sleeping. Da, da, da. I was like, well, I'm like going crazy. So then they had called the sheriff's department. Sheriff department said, oh, somebody's going to call you back. Da, da, da. I was like, what do you mean call me back?
Right.
So I'm freaked out. My mother-in-law gets over there, and so I knew when they said they're gonna call me back, like she wasn't there anymore. But
Mm.
it was like, one of the most helpless feelings. I'm sitting there. I called same thing. You got your team. I had my buddy Ricky. God bless his soul. Like, he was downstairs about to get something to eat. I'm in my hotel just resting in between the games, and then I said, you got to come up here. He's like, oh, what's going on? I was like, you just got to get up here. And so I instantly told him, and I'm like literally on the ground crying. And I didn't need him to do anything for me at that point other than just be there. And he just sat there. He didn't say nothing. And that's really what I needed. I didn't want anything else. And um, so I started just packing. So I just started getting busy. Well, I called my grandma, and she's 93, and like she said, that should have been me. And I'm like, oh my God, like hearing her voice, um, and then calling, my close family members and stuff like that. And then trying to get Maddie to me. She found out on the plane, trying to text, and you know how that is in the air.
Right. Right.
And yeah, so I get to the airport. I put my sunglasses on, and then the flight got delayed till like 10 o'clock at night, and I didn't even check out the hotel. And she was like, "Why don't we just stay here and we can go in the morning?" Which was actually a good thing. So we just stayed there in the hotel room because there was nothing that we could have did
Right.
that night. And so we got this really nice Italian food, and her stepdad had passed away in February of this year too.
Mm-hmm.
We had just kind of got through that process, and now this. So it was like it was definitely the most devastating thing that I ever had to go through in my whole life, because she was the only constant throughout the whole time.
Yeah.
But there was definitely a lot of tears, a lot of emotions going through, having to tell the kids that their second grandparent had died. That was one of the hardest things because my mom was so close with them. And then, the morning of her service was the last time I cried, which was probably about a month ago now. But I went in my home gym, started working out, listened to this one song, Free Mind by Tim's. It's a great song, by the way. And I just started on. Carnell was here, and he always checked. And by the way, he came to me in Vegas too. He was on a flight from a funeral. He came in and he picked us up the next morning, and I just held him and we just cried together. But that morning of the service, he was here and he let me be. The kids went off to go get dressed at their cousin's house, and that was like the last moment, but it was like I was okay. And I gave I gave my speech at the celebration of life. But people were like, dang, how did you not cry? I was like, because I ain't got no more tears. I
Right.
left it all out there, similar to what you said. So that kind of reminded me of that whole situation. But yeah, it was just a wild situation, and I haven't cried since the service, but I can still have moments of sadness. And her picture's up on the wall and in our living room. And so every time I just see that, it's usually when I'm alone. I see like, damn, mom, like I hear no more. But yeah, I mean, you just kind of go through it every single day, and you try to internalize what happened, but you have to accept it and you have to move on. Because what are you going to do? Like you got your diagnosis, but you just gonna stop? No, you got to keep going. You got kids, you got family, you got people that are dependent on you, and your vulnerability and the ability to help others is going to help them get through the situation. That was the same thing for me. And really my grandma was the one that was like, Chris, your mom's not coming back. And this was like, I wanted to get some sort of, I wanted just some sort of empathy. And she really put it to me. And I was like, yeah. And after that, I was like, I was cool. So it's something that I needed to hear. I didn't want to hear it at the time, but I needed to hear it. And I was so glad that she did. And it has allowed me to just kind of see things for what they are. Well, what are the blessings that you do have in your life?
Sure.
And focus on those, and focus on what you're going to do next and how you're going to cherish her legacy and everything that you do. And so that's kind of what I've been doing. And I'm glad that this is a place, this is like a therapeutic thing. And I'm glad that you were vulnerable with me. I didn't know that was going on. And you probably didn't even know that was going on in me. But we're both here. We're both sharing, and we're being open, because this is going to help somebody else get through whatever it is that they're going to go through. Because if you ain't had a storm in your life, well, we all have, but it for sure is coming if you haven't had one. And how are you going to get through the storm is you gotta freaking weather it. And if you weather the storm, you'll be okay moving forward, but you got to get through that really difficult part. So.
Yeah, yeah. I appreciate you sharing that. I did not know that, and I am very sorry for your loss. And I cannot imagine the way that you found out and how like that. Just how hard and devastating that is. And I think about like my relationship with God, and I think about how angry I was, and just being like, why are you doing this? Why is this happening to me? Like I just had a kid. Like what is going on? But I think about, this is my theory, is that I'm gonna speak for me, is that sometimes God comes in and has to get our attention and has to do it in a drastic way. And I think things
Mhm.
happen to us for to pivot us to be like, you've done all you can in this direction, and I need you to pivot, and this is how I'm gonna make you pivot. Now I don't think God is trying to hurt us on purpose, but I think sometimes like there just has things happen in life that make you hard pivot. Like either reverse pivot or forward pivot, however you want to think about that from a basketball turn, but you are going to turn a direction. And I think about, it was my maybe wake up call to seeing that like what I do and what I can do, that all of these experiences within athletics led me to this place of, I can help people on the back end with their mental health, especially coaches, because I know what it is. I've been in it for 15 years at all levels,
Mhm.
and been in almost, yeah, I'm in every position, from head coach all the way down to a dobo to a volunteer, and been with some really great coaches, been with some not so great coaches, and everything I've learned, it was all learning. Like it wasn't bad, it was all learning, and like what to do, what not to do. And I think how important it is, and it took me, I'm not gonna lie, it took me a while to see it from that perspective. Uh, but I think that was the only way that I could in order to move on. So to your point of like, how did I do it? I think it is through prayer. I think it is trying to get an understanding of like, okay, but what now? Because you're right. Like I couldn't just lay up in the bed. I laid in the bed a while. Like I was depressed. And it was COVID, so we couldn't go anywhere anyway. So it was like a double whammy. So I think it's like sometimes you have to, I think we're so quick sometimes to get through grief versus really feeling it, and like you said, like crying until you have no more tears left, and then it's like, okay, but here we go, and now we move forward, and it's not going to be the same, and I'm not going to ever forget. um but I'm grateful, because it's led me to this space, and it's led me to work with some amazing people and watch them on their journeys of being the best versions of themselves. But I couldn't be able to do that if I didn't have any of the experiences that I've had, either as a student athlete or as a coach. So yeah, I think it's just these type of like storms shape you, and they change you forever. And it's, and people can say you can't say you understand, because a lot of people don't understand. They don't understand what like this type of diagnosis does. They don't understand, potentially they haven't lost a parent, so they don't understand, but they can have sympathy, they can have empathy, they can make space. And I think that the teams that we talked about, like for yourself and for myself, like I think that's what they did, was just made space, and just like, whatever you need, I got you. And I think, it's not, I don't ever, not ever looking for somebody to fix it. I think like a lot of times some young people or even adults are always looking for somebody to fix it, and I'm like, no, you got to fix it, right? And I know this sucks, and I know it's hard, but you can do this. Maybe it's not right now, maybe it's not today, maybe it's not tomorrow, maybe it's like, a month or a week, or 3 months from now, but you know what, you are going to fix it. It will happen. And so it's just believing in that, and having prayer, I think, is huge. Whatever, prayer, meditation, what have you, but it is trying to lean on something else bigger than yourself in those moments, I think, is probably the thing that got me through the most too. Is those conversations with God, and just being like, okay, I hear you. I'm whatever you want to do. It's like, I'm just the vessel. Whatever you want to do.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I mean, the significant pivots in our life or storms in our life, me specifically, have always led me closer to God, not further, even though in the moment, yes, you are mad and you're upset, but in the end, you become closer because that's all you really have to lean on. There's
Right.
nothing else that you can lean on to really get you through it other than the team that is around you and stuff like that. And you said something that I think is very important, and especially in my situation, I needed to feel whatever it is that I was going to feel. And I isolated myself from friends and family for a little bit because I needed to feel whatever it was going to feel, but I wasn't going to medicate with something else.
Right.
The only thing I did medicate myself was with just working out relentlessly
Right.
and just blacking out in those moments, getting on the Peloton and just going as hard as you can, or lifting weights with the music blasting. That was, but I didn't do like any alcohol or anything like that. Where I wasn't going to drink. I wasn't going to drink at all until I knew I was the first time that I even consumed anything, a glass of wine, was the day of her service. But prior, leading up to that, I wasn't gonna. I just needed to feel whatever it was going to feel, and I needed to make sure that I was okay with those feelings. It's like a cold tub. Like I knew I didn't, it like would have been easy for me to, oh, I'm just gonna have a drink and try to like not think about this
Yeah.
and try to go somewhere else. But I really wanted to feel whatever it is that I was gonna feel in those moments. And I think it made me a stronger person by doing that, because
Mm.
you can't control a whole lot, but there are some things that you can control, and I could control that.
Right.
And then I would say that I've been more focused on, and more focused as a coach. I'm more intentional with the relationships. I used to find a lot of reasons to say no. My friend wants to go get dinner. Oh, I got to do this. I got to do that.
Right.
I am finding every reason now to say yes, if it's reasonable. Like if somebody asked me for $1 million, well, first I ain't got $1 million
I
to
got it.
give you, but
Right.
but I will give you my time, which is
Right.
the most valuable thing that we all have
Right.
right here, right now. Is if I give you my time, and specifically letting our teams know, like, listen, I got other obligations that are very, very important to me. But right now, there is nothing more important to me than this moment with you. If we're out at conditioning, this is the most important moment that I have. This is the only moment that I have. I got nothing else to give other than this moment right now.
Mm.
This is the present that I have. I
Mm.
don't have anything else but this present right now. And that is why this is a gift, that we get to spend this time together. And when we leave here, fine, we had that time together, and now it's time to go to the next thing. But yeah, I've never been more intentional about that. And what's important now? What's important now?
Yeah.
What is important in this very moment? And there's nothing else. I got my phone off. It's on airplane mode, so we can fully invest into the conversation that we're having. There's Yeah, everything like, I love my kids, but there's nothing more important than what we're exchanging right now. I can't do anything else. I am right here, and just trying to be way more present in all aspects of life.
Yeah.
And I think that is what my mom would have wanted me to do. And I've never been more locked in with
Mm.
everything. Like, I don't bring my phone out when I'm at home anymore. My phone is in my room. Well, the only reason why I kind of had it, well, first of all, I don't need it anyway, but in case something were to happen to my mom, like that is if I have all these four people, or Madison, CJ, and Maxine, I'm not really too concerned about anything else at that point, because my mom was the only other one that I was really worried about.
Yeah.
Now, everybody that I'm worried about is literally right here. Yeah, I'm worried
Right.
about my friends and stuff like that, but the immediate family, now I got to keep it in there, because they need all my attention. I can't I can't let them see that something else is more important to them in this moment.
Yeah.
I mean, and then I want to switch topics, but we go to karate, and I'm the only parent not on my phone. Every kid, and there's nothing more important than watching your kid do this karate right now. But all of you guys are on your phone. And then the kids turn around and look, and the parents aren't looking. And they're like, and then the parents, oh, like, no, get the F off your phone and watch what's going on.
Yeah.
There's nothing more important than right here,
Right.
and you can get to that later. So
Yeah.
that's what I learned, and I'll continue to learn and grow. But this was definitely at 40 years old. This is the hardest it's ever been, but it's also the best. Yes, we had a lot of loss, but there's been a lot of positives that have come because of that.
Yeah.
And the memories are never gonna go anywhere. You're always
Yeah.
gonna have them. She's with me always.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. I think that uh it must have been like needed, you know what I mean, to have this part of the conversation. I think sometimes these are the probably the best conversations to have when and I think like, oh, this must have been something I needed to talk about. This must have been something that we both needed to talk about. And I
yeah.
was and that uh I feel like I think when I think about mental health, right? Like vulnerability is looked at as weakness. And here we are, both of us, talking about something so probably close to us and vulnerable and we don't probably talk about. I mean, you just said you haven't shared this on the podcast. I'm sure a lot of people close to you maybe have not heard the story. I know a lot of people close to me never heard the blow by blow, or even people that just know me on social media, like now they're gonna see like, oh wow, like Megan, you were really going through it. I was like, listen, like it really was. And I think um how strong are we to be able to have this conversation, especially people of color, because that is something that I was taught very young. Whatever happens here stays here, and we don't talk about stuff unless it's at home. And even things of this nature, like it's not like about just getting spanked or getting like disciplined. It is about like just feelings in particular. And so
Mhm.
I feel very blessed to even have this conversation with you. This is very cool.
Likewise, and I felt that her passing. A lot of my friends' parents haven't passed yet,
Right.
but if I had to be one of the first ones to actually go through that, as far as my close friends, it was going to be for a reason. And 2 weeks later, one of my best friends, Adam, he lost his dad,
Mm,
and so we kind of went through it together. And then when I gave my speech at the celebration of life, he's like, man, he sat with me. He came over. We had a celebration at my house after, and he got there before everybody because he didn't really want to stick around because his dad had just passed, and it was just like a lot. But he sat there with me. He's like, man, I don't know how the f you did that,
right.
and I was like, you just do. And then I got to witness him do his version a few weeks after for his dad before, maybe because he saw some strength in me, which maybe I didn't have, but there was other people that I saw go through it, like Sarah and Allie. They lost their dad 1 year before. I watched how
Mm,
strong they were when they stepped up there and spoke.
right.
I watched that, and they're both in the basketball world. Allie's an official, Sarah's a head coach. I watched them. They gave me so much strength by just watching what they did and watching Maddie's mom go through losing her husband. I watched her go through that, and I'm like, dang, how are you even so strong? I'm like, I wouldn't even know how to go through that, and she just went through that fire, and she's still going through it. We all still do, but you find strength in those moments, and you find strength in the people that are around you. If I didn't watch those strong women go through that, if somebody lose their husband, somebody lose their dad right in front of me, and they get up in there, and I'm like, dang, how did you even do that? And you just do it because you've never done it before. And now this is new territory, but now, it'd be almost selfish for us not to share what we are going through or what we have gone through.
Mhm.
Like, that's the reason why you go through it, to share it with somebody else, to actually get them to the point where they can say, dang, okay. Because it's the pain and the loss and sorrow is all going to happen to us,
Sure.
just like it's going to be cloudy and rainy one day and sunny the next.
Right.
We have to paint it like it's not always rainy. We're not always sad. Yeah, we might be sad for this moment, but we got to get our ass up and figure a way out to move on to the next aspect of whatever it is. And what's
Right.
important now? What's important now? Okay, I need to be sad right now. But now the tomorrow morning, well, I got to get our kids to school. I got to do this. I got to do this to make sure that everything else is set up. And then it makes you think, as a parent, did you set everything up for your kids, for your loved ones to be okay? is your life insurance in place? Are the beneficiaries? Do you have your living trust? Do you have your will? Do you have all these things set up to make sure if something were to happen to you, that their life is going to be a lot more easy to manage because it's painful enough to lose somebody. Then you got to take care of all the extra stuff. So yeah, you just kind of learn a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do.
Uh, so as we kind of start wrapping up, but we'll have to probably have another conversation. Tell us what you're doing in the mental health space for coaches, because two coaches talking about being vulnerable. How are you helping them become better people to fight through whatever it is they're going through? Because like you said, coaches do, like your head coach mentioned, we go through a lot, but not a lot of coaches are getting assistance from everybody else.
Right, right. I think we need to think about athletics like a business, and that every time a C-suite executive or a CEO, they level up, they get help. And to your point at the very beginning, you said we don't do life alone ever. We don't accomplish anything by ourselves. And so I think about, why would it be different in athletics? And why would it be different, like, the higher you go, the more they're like, well, good luck. We're going to give you all this money, but good luck, and these are the expectations. And I know you've, like, potentially there's sometimes these people get into head coaching jobs and they've never been a head coach. They've been an assistant coach for years. But I'm telling you, just that little move, and just that little move from assistant to head, I don't care what level it is a jump, and that you feel very much like an island, especially head coaches. And it's like, you don't know who to talk to, you don't know what to do, and yes, you can lean on mentors, but they got their own teams that they're dealing with, right? And so it's thinking about who is going to be dedicated to you to help you and really understand what it's like to be in your shoes, regardless of level. I think, like I said, especially head coaches, there's just a different pressure there. And I think at Power Fives, especially, they're making a lot of money. And thinking about, if we think about it in the black and white sense, as far as money coming in, money going out, like, if there's more, if they feel, coaches, I'm talking about head coaches, feel like they can do anything, they're on top of the world, they've got a healthy life work balance, and whatever that means in athletics, because it doesn't look the same at a 9 to 5 than it does in athletics, and they are successful. My hypothesis would be, you'd have more retention, you'd have less investigations, you'd have people wanting to stay for and working for head coaches, you'd have a lot, like, a happier work environment, which then potentially could equal wins. And you have more wins, that equals more people coming in to invest. You've got, donors, and you've got alumni, and again, I'm talking about Power Five. So I just think about, maybe which the money that you invest in for an executive coach, for a head coach, might be a lot up front, but you're going to make that back 10 to 20 times, maybe even more, due to the fact that everyone is feeling supported and loved. And that's, at the end of the day, we got to remember that we're human beings first, right? And that we're students, potentially set our students that we work with, they're students first, and then they're athletes second. But before all of that, they're human, and that they have a lot of things. But I think sometimes our student athletes forget that we as coaches are human. And I think that was something I always wanted to remind my student athletes when I worked for them, was that, like, hey, like, a thank you goes a long way, right? Or like, hey, coach, you need any help? Can I clean up? Can I do this? Can I do that? Like, stuff like that. Or, hey, when I was pregnant and we're going on a bus and you see that there's no other seats and I'm holding on to the bar, hey, coach, you want to sit down? Things of that nature, right? Human first, right? We're human first, and then we can fill in the blanks of, we're daughter, we're son, we're coach, we're this, we're that. And I think if we all can think about it from that perspective, and thinking about it from a holistic standpoint of supporting a whole group of people versus just focusing on student athletes, which I think it's very much needed to focus on them, but we need to focus on everyone that supports them, including athletic directors, including trainers, including continue, and then coaches, assistant coaches, everyone, so that it can just be a healthy environment for everybody.
Do you have any hacks for coaches to, like, if they didn't have a coach like you,
Mhm.
what could they do to help decrease the amount of stress that they have on a day-to-day basis, like a quick quick little bullet point thing that, okay, if you did this every single day, it's going to ease your stress because we live like coaches are dying with heart attacks and
That's right.
unhealthy lifestyles because you're up late, uh, up early,
Yeah.
and you're dealing with so many different things, whether it be your players, whether it be the parents, whether it be depending on what level you are, administration, boosters, just all this sort of stuff that they have to deal with. How can they manage some of these things to make it less stressful on them?
I don't know if there's one thing I would say, but I think about you have to have a team. And I think about how important, like, well, again, I'm going to go back to what we started with is that outside of athletics to help you see what you can't see, right? And they know you the best. And I think is like, making sure you're relying on those people. I would also say you got to move your body. I think that's probably why we're seeing a lot of coaches with health issues is that we're either 80% of the job is all the things that we got to do on the computer, we got to do travel, we got to do this, we got to make sure they're passing their classes, we got to go here, we got to go there, and then we spend 20% of it on the floor, but we're not moving enough for us. And so I think about before you even start to think about practice or what your assistant coaches need or what your wife or husband needs or what your children need is what do you need? When you wake up in the morning? Is it the first thing? Like I remember watching a documentary on Pat Summitt. She's up at 4 o'clock in the morning doing her exercise. And I'm sure that's probably what got her through all those years of being a head coach. I mean, at a place like Tennessee, being one of the best, if not the best women's basketball coach in history, my opinion. I think that, you're seeing her work out, right? And I'm thinking, how many coaches actually work out? I don't care if it's outside or inside, and prioritizing their physical health. And then the other thing that I think is really helpful, and I discovered it, and I used to do this all the time as a therapist. I used to just say, you should journal, but I never did it because I was like, ah, it's whack. But when you're in COVID and there's really nothing you can't go anywhere, you can only watch so much TV, you can only do whatever. I spent a lot of time journaling to get to know myself. And I think about we're so go, 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 and we avoid some of the things that are going on inside of us. And I think journaling makes you stop and recognize that, hey, this is a problem. And that sometimes the problems that live in our minds need to go somewhere. So whether it be talking to somebody or on paper, it feels like every time that I journal and I write down potentially my worries, my fears, and I address it to God. Dear God, I'm thankful for bop, bop, bop. And then let me tell you what I'm worried about. These are my concerns. And I give it to you because I only have so much control, like what you said earlier. So I'm putting it to you and then I feel so much better.
That's one of the wildest things that I've heard because
Really.
what I found notebooks of journals from my mom
Mm,
from 30 years ago,
mm,
thanking God in all of her journals, first and foremost, and then outlining what happened in the day.
wow.
What you just said literally, I sat for hours on the couch reading. And so she would talk about whatever it is that she was going on at work with her significant other at the time, her boyfriend, me. Like I got an award. She was so proud. It was, yeah. So that was one of the things that also got me through because I know where she's at, no doubt, because she was so faithful even 30 years ago. When I was 10
Yes.
years old, I looked to the date. It was, the July 28th. I looked 30 years ago and I can look up the journal. And then I went to a Giants game with so and so, and she was so excited for me to go there. Da, da, da. And then, like that, yeah, it was just really, really crazy that you just said that because that is literally what my mom did. And she thanked God every single day. Then she talked about her day. And wow.
Well, she's here. There's no consequence. I mean, there's no coincidence in that. I really believe that sometimes when we talk about things, we don't even know that that's gonna like that's what that person needed. Like I think like your mom's here with us, right now, and I think how special. I didn't know that, and I just think it's helped me. And I've really just started doing it and making it a habit of just making that a priority. And I tell you, Chris, like I've seen so much good come from it. Just doing that in the morning. The very first thing is I journal
Mm.
before I get these children up, before I start making the lunches, before I take the dog for a walk, before is this. And if I don't do it, then I'm like, dang, like I didn't really start my day off like the way I wanted to. And it just sets it up. It just sets it up for, I feel like I'm a win. And I mean, there might be storms coming in that day, but I won this morning. And it's taking that moment and saying, I won this moment. I may not win the next moment, but I won this moment. And I think it's, just because you have is it a bad day if you had one bad moment? Or can we
No.
just keep it in the moment? Just keep it in like, I had a bad moment, but you know what? I'm gonna make the next moment my best moment. And that
And
be it.
we made this podcast
I
excellent.
know.
This is amazing. Amazing. I have one final question though.
Okay.
Before we wrap. First of all, put out anything that you have going on right now so we can let the listeners know.
Sure. I'm offering working with coaches at a really low price. Just hit me up on my socials at the rec center, or email me at megan@meganhankins.com. I'm on Twitter at Coach Hankins because I ain't never gonna stop coaching. So in any way possible, I want coaches to know specifically, again, and if you have athletes that want to work with me, I welcome them too. um and that I have openings, and that I really just want coaches to know that you matter as much as your athletes matter, and that without you there is no them, and they need you to be your best. And if you're at your best, then they will be at their best, and everybody wins, whether that's on the floor, on the field, or in life. And we need you to be at your best.
Awesome. Final question. Is there somebody that should be on this podcast? Who should it be? And before you say the name, you got to make the connection.
I gotta make the connection.
Yes, you have to introduce us if I don't know them.
Okay. Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean,
And stay on after the outro.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me see. You listen. Can I give two people?
Yeah, I'll take them all.
Okay. So
This is how the podcast keeps going. The
I'm
more
a
the merrier.
right. I'm gonna say, do they have to be in athletics or no?
Anybody. We'll talk
Okay.
to
Bet.
anybody here. It's
So
beyond the buckets.
I would say, my executive coach, Coach Carla Michelle.
Wow. I love that. Yeah.
She is like awesome, amazing, gem dropping, keeps it very real. And I would also say my former head coach, Michelle Bento Jackson at Cal Poly Humboldt. Two of probably the best people in that I could give you. I think not in my, they make my team. And so I would definitely say those two for sure.
I need them both. So thank you,
All right.
Coach. It was a
Yeah.
great podcast. I'll see you right after the outro.
Okay. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Beyond the Buckets podcast. Please remember to subscribe, rate, and share the show with your friends. And until next time, take care.